Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. It is about 42 minutes past 9 p.m. East African time, and we are about to start Disruptive Friday. So probably you've heard about worldcoin, the new cryptocurrency that is taking Kenya by storm. And to have that conversation, that very important conversation, I have three gentlemen with me tonight. Two physically in studio, and of course one that will be connecting with virtually. And I'd like to start with the one that is in New York. That is Charles Nichols, who is the CEO and founder of ncoin. Charles, if you can hear me, good afternoon. I know it is 2 p.m. In New York, 2 p.m., 2:43 p.m. in New York. Good afternoon.
That's right. Good evening to you and to everybody in Kenya. Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you too, Charles. And on my left, I have Anthony Mburu, who is a blockchain expert. And on my right, I have John Mucheke, who is a cybersecurity expert. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us for this very important conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Santi. And I want to start with you, Charles. And I think at this juncture, it's very important to mention that you do not represent Tools for Humanity, the company that is behind worldcoin, but your company, ncoin, is one of the entities that is currently cashing in on that windfall by Tools for Humanity. How different is worldcoin from other cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, good question. So, when I first came to Kenya 12 years ago, back in 2011, I came there to set up a business because Kenya was the leader in financial technology in Africa. And so my previous startup, we were doing solar powered irrigation on Lipa Pole Pole payment plans. And without M-Pesa, it would have been completely impossible to be able to deliver that life-changing service in rural areas. And I think, for me, I believe that Kenya is going to continue to be a world leader in financial innovation, and that the next step in that innovation is cryptocurrency. And so worldcoin represents kind of one piece of a larger ecosystem that will be required to make cryptocurrency useful and relevant for everyday people. And the avenue, the utility that worldcoin is trying to build is around identity. So if you want to have financial services, you want to open a bank account, or you want to transact on M-Pesa, you have to go with your identity card to an M-Pesa agent to transact, right? The same thing is going to be true for any type of financial service. But the challenge is that doing financial services on crypto today doesn't have that identity layer. It's really difficult to integrate with national IDs and to use this on-chain financial service system. So in my perspective, worldcoin is kind of providing that infrastructure around identity to enable financial innovation to be built on top of cryptocurrency.
So just a follow-up question on that. How is the data being stored and protected, the data that is collected by Tools for Humanity, the company behind worldcoin?
Yeah. Look, I think it's a great question, and it's something that a lot of people have been asking, and I think that asking those questions is right, and I think the government taking time to get comfortable with how this data privacy is being protected makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. I can't speak directly for Tools for Humanity because I represent a separate organization, but I've done a bit of research, and I am an electrical mechanical engineer by trade, mm-hmm. So I have a bit of background on it. And as far as I can tell, what's happening with the WorldCoin orb is very similar to what happens with the iPhone or Android Face ID, mm-hmm. where you're scanning your image of your face or of your eye. That image gets stored on the device. A hash or a cryptographic signature connected to that image then gets generated, and that is then what's used to enable transactions like Apple Pay, for example. But that the original image is actually never transmitted off of the device. And so what WorldCoin claims is that actually when the registration is complete, mm-hmm. the image is deleted. So that instead of having to worry about the ongoing kind of privacy consideration, you actually just have a cryptographic hash that is preserving your privacy, but still lets you sign transactions on the blockchain.
Mm-hmm. And just before I engage the two gentlemen in studio, I saw your tweet disputing a claim by a Kenyan legislator, that is Kimani Ichung'wah, who's the leader of majority in our National Assembly. That's what we call it, the House of Representatives. who said that worldcoin is banned in the US, but the website clearly states that worldcoin tokens, WAD, are not intended to be available to people or companies who are residents of or located, incorporated, or have a registered agent in the United States or other restricted territories. Would you mind clarifying that?
Yeah. So I think there's two things that are being conflated here. There's the scanning, which is where I think most of the privacy concerns are coming from. People are worried, hey, what's happening with my data? That scanning is taking place in the US. So you can go to New York, to San Francisco, to Los Angeles, and you can scan and you can create a world ID that then can be used for identifying and signing transactions on the blockchain. What you cannot do in the US is get the airdrop. So you can't receive the WorldCoin tokens that I think is the huge motivator and why we've seen such a surge in attention towards WorldCoin in Kenya and in other countries. So we as Americans can still scan and we can still create a world ID, but we cannot benefit by receiving the airdrop. And the reason for that is because the US SEC, Security and Exchange Commission, has been extremely hostile towards cryptocurrency. And their chair is basically saying that anything other than Bitcoin is a security. Now, most of us in the industry don't believe that to be true. Coinbase, the #1 exchange in the US, is going to bat and has sued the US government, and they're actually making a lot of progress. And I think what we'll see is that the courts in the US will overrule the SEC because the SEC is acting in contradiction to our Congress, so basically our parliament. They're overextending their authority. But that specific issue around security legislation is a separate issue from data privacy and scanning, and the scanning is still taking place in the US as well as many other countries.
Well, thank you, Nichols. I'll be engaging you later on in this discussion. Anthony Mburu, you're a blockchain expert. Do you find that quite weird that we have different rules in different jurisdictions on how cryptocurrencies are handled?
Thank you for having me. For me, I think for the Western countries like US, of course, they're advanced in their policies and conformities, or maybe the startups, like when you talk about fintech, they're not so friendly with building any technologies or frameworks around how their structure is built, because of course as a democracy they've really grown. But for me, it's not like we have different set of roles. In Africa and so many other countries, we are still struggling with understanding the basics of, or even creating any legal frameworks around this new emerging technology, the blockchain and those cryptocurrencies. So it becomes very easier for those fintech companies to come here and launch their products and do very well for themselves. Like if you look, for instance, at an exchange like Binance, Binance US and the other Binance are two different worlds, because they know the moment you hit the US markets, then you have a challenge there. Anything would come up and you have now to face the law and try to push back and forth to conform to their policies. But at the end of the day, for me, the technology and the entire thing was built to be a decentralized ecosystem. So it's not something that governments can fight at this point. They just have to find a way to collaborate. I don't know, because you can control what you don't. You can't control what you don't have. I don't know. Yeah.
There's no central database.
Yeah. So it becomes very hard for you to. It becomes very hard to control that ecosystem. So for them, I don't know. I am really curious to see how that works, even for our own economy. You can see they've already said, oh, we want to impose taxes and all that on this particular industry. But how will that be achieved? And it's meant to be a decentralized ecosystem. So I don't know. So for the West, I think it's just the democracy being too mature, and there are so many frameworks around building businesses in the US and in Africa and so many, and maybe the East is easier to just set up and move, because you don't need any kind of registration around those fintech concepts.
You've used some flowery language like decentralization.
Yeah.
When we say that the Western countries are quite advanced when it comes to democracy, don't you think it's also important that our our government also tightens the screws on such currencies, especially currencies that would encourage rogue players to come in and encourage things like money laundering. Like right now, we're trying to grapple on how to enforce money laundering laws. Don't you think we also should look at the direction that the US is looking at?
Of course, we at some point, I don't know. For me, you just heard what our colleague just said. The SEC and these entities that are already doing business in that place, they're doing that push and pull. But for an entrepreneur, would you want to go launch your business where you, right from the onset, you're busy pushing policies and creating legal frameworks around concepts that everybody doesn't understand? Or would you run to where business can just be set up and you just move without? So for me, we will eventually get there and probably borrow a lot of what is happening in the West and just implement in our countries. But at the end of the day, in my view, the government is just not understanding how do we not control these economies or these people, and how do we, because blockchain, it cannot. It is very hard. How do we do it? I'm really here to understand. I don't know. It's a very hard. It's a very hard thing to understand. But for me, I think I don't know. I don't see it happening anytime in the future.
All right.
Yeah.
John Mucheke, yes. You're a cybersecurity expert. There's been a lot of fuss around the storage of biometrics data. Do you find it quite hypocritical? A lot of banks have our biometrics, the fingerprints. We have telcos that ask us to register our voice with them. They have some sort of a data bank for such. Don't you find it quite hypocritical that now someone somewhere sat down and decided, you know what, for iris, no. For fingerprints and every other thing, it's okay.
Okay. I will start with, first, I will not say that the government is trying to control. It's all about just regulating. It's all about protecting people's rights, about protecting the data protection. So it's not like the government is coming in and deciding to attack worldcoin and say, oh, by the way, we need to control you, what is it you're doing. It's more of if they're being investigated in Germany and in France for legality of collecting those biometrics, where do you really need that? Our colleague talked about identification online with using cryptocurrency. We can still use what people are doing, like in Bitcoin or in any other cryptocurrency. They use wallets. So those wallets will be the one which you use to identify you. So collecting that data, like for example, Safaricom, and you're told to register all over again, and you're saying, why are we doing this, registering all the time? It's more of what is it that will be able to identify you. We're not against the technology. We're just against what are you going to do with that data? How secure is it? Like how you asked our colleague, how are they securing the database? Where are they storing it? worldcoin says they're scanning and then that hash or that cryptograph is stored and not the actual image. Yes, that can be true, but how sure are we? So we need a body, an enforcing body, where they'll be able to verify themselves that that is actually happening. You don't want like years to come for generation, you find out that they actually took the image and then they kept it. They didn't delete it. So they kept it and they kept also the hash to identify, but they kept that for other reasons. So I would say they're not being hypocrites. They're just, it's an uproar, especially when they're trying to, it was more of a coercing. Because like yesterday I was talking to my barber, as you can see I just had a haircut. And he said he went and actually lined up and he didn't get it just because he didn't have the time. And I asked him, why did you go there? And of course, because of the money. So it's more of, nipatie and I'll give you, you give me. It's it's an exchange. An exchange. He doesn't understand, so we're against that. He doesn't understand why he's doing that. All he cares about is the money. And then I asked him, do you think you're actually getting the money? Or you're getting a value, a coin, a world coin for that amount? Do you think you'll be able to withdraw? Can you be able to do that? He has no idea. All he knows was, I'm going there and I'm getting 7,000 shillings. So that's what we're against. We're not against any other thing, like technology. We're not fighting. We're not asking the government to fight. We're not asking the government, where have you been? You know, as they have registered, they have done the follow-ups, they've done all the registrations. So they can go ahead, as long as they can be able to prove that they can protect the data.
Do you find it quite naive that we're just a few weeks after we were hit by a massive cyber attack? The government called it an attempt, and the data of several or millions of Kenyans was at stake. Do you find it quite naive that there are people who have not really followed up on this just to understand what actually is happening at the KICC and other parts of the country where the registration or the scanning of the eyeballs was happening? Do you find it quite naive, or it's a part of us not just being serious as a country?
I honestly cannot comment on that. I have no idea what happened there, the hack.
Right.
I can't actually pinpoint this was the problem, this what happened, this what failed. I cannot comment on that. But then again, I'll go back to, we are not, I see the government is not trying to stop investors. That's why they welcome them. They didn't try to stop them.
Okay.
They're not trying to like control them.
Okay.
All the citizens are asking, especially what's the big buzz is, why are they giving us the money for our data? And when you're doing that, you're also giving consent. They say people come and sign the consent. Have people read it? Do you ever read the terms and conditions? Okay. Even when you're doing the scan, open your phone with your facial recognition, you really don't read the terms and conditions. You need to be sold, will the data be sold? Data is money, data is power. So we do need the government to come in and be able to certify that our rights are protected. They're not just coming to mine our resources. Your biometrics is a resource. We don't know if the data is going to be used to go and AI training. We don't know what they're going to do with that data. Is it going to be stored? Is it going to be sold like Facebook analytics? Yes. That's kind of like Cambridge. We just have no idea. So I can't comment specifically on that hack, but I can comment on the rest. All right, let's get back to New York. Charles, if you're still with us, the company Tools for Humanity through WorldCoin is giving Kenyans who've lined up to have their irises scanned $49, which is an equivalent of about 7,000 Kenyan shillings. And your company, ncoin, actually is giving the Kenyans who are willing to exchange the WorldCoins, the tokens that they get with basic commodities like unga, cooking oil. One of the biggest conversations that we have right now in the country is the cost of living. I'm sure you know about that. Would you call that predatory? Because after the 7,000 shillings, you've given them unga, the cooking oil. Then what next?
Yeah, so I think the cost of living crisis in the country is a critical conversation to have. It's something that we talk about every day at Nuzo, right? How can we bring down the cost of food? So my first company that I started in Kenya back in 2011 was focused on the agricultural production side. So we were supplying farmers with irrigation systems so they could increase their productivity, reduce their costs, grow more food. Nuzo is on the other side. So we're doing food distribution. So we work with manufacturers and we distribute it to retailers, right? And then when somebody buys a wholesale bale of unga from Nuzo, we deliver to them and they pay in cash, they pay in pesa on delivery, and then they earn Nuzo coins cash back. Those Nuzo coins then they can save or they can redeem them for discounts on future orders, and their customers also get these Nuzo coins. So the net effect is that we're bringing down the cost of food at the retail level and to the consumers, which I think is critical. In terms of different cryptocurrencies that work with Nuzo, you can deposit pretty much any crypto. You have Bitcoin, you have Ethereum, you have USDT, USDC. So WorldCoin is just another cryptocurrency that you're able to deposit into Nuzo, and you can use that to buy basic commodities. And so we decided to do this. We've known the WorldCoin team for a bit, seen kind of what they've been up to over the last year or so, and basically saw an opportunity because they're bringing all of this money from Silicon Valley, from San Francisco, into Kenya because they're doing this airdrop. They've raised, I think, $115 million US. And so money is flowing from investors in the US to the everyday Kenyan. So of course it made sense to us, hey, why don't you just swap into ncoin instead of paying a fee or paying a broker or a middleman or whatever to get cash or get M-Pesa. Now you can swap into ncoin and you can be able to get those same basic commodities that are more and more expensive every day natively without having to go through an intermediary and lose out.
So just before we go for a short break, Charles, From your research, how long is the data that is collected, for instance, here in Kenya, retained? Do you have data retention policy in place? Does the company have a data retention policy in place?
So we at Newzo don't collect any data on people. We just deliver UNGA and they pay and that's it. In terms of WorldCoin and Tools for Humanity, my understanding is that the image gets deleted, it doesn't get sent, and that the sharing any other personal data like an email or a phone number or whatever is totally optional, but you don't have to share that data to use the service. But again, that's WorldCoin Tools for Humanity, a little bit different than what we're doing. You know, we just kind of deliver to shops and we don't need to collect a lot of data in order to do that.
All right, thank you for that, Charles Nichols. Time now for a very short break. Remember, you can be part of this conversation by texting us live on 22047. Our Twitter handle is at TV47 News. Mine is at Eric_Nene. Time now for a very short break at 4 minutes past the hour. We'll be back. Don't go away.
The news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victories, your health, your money, your security, your past, present, and future. We are interested in telling the stories of creativity, hard work, and resilience that you are known for. That is our job. This is my job. My name is Victor Moyakane, and it's my honor to bring you this news this way every Thursday night on the home of Untold Stories.
Katika majengo haya, hapa ndipo sheria zinapotungwa na zinapopakuliwa. Nitakuletea viongozi mbalimbali, mirengo mbalimbali, wote kwa pamoja wakipika na kupakua. Tutawapa nafasi kuweza kuangazia changamoto na mafanikio ya ugatuzi katika ukumbi wa siasa kila siku ya Jumanne kuanzia saa 1 kamili na kuendelea.
Toka eneo hili la Naivasha kwenye kaunti 032, gatuzi la Nakuru.
Kutoka kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet, kaunti 028.
Nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Wajir.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Turukana. Kwa matukio yote yanayojiri katika kaunti hii 012.
Kutoka kaunti nambari 1, kaunti ya Mombasa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Lamu.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka Kisii County.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Machakos.
Kutoka kaunti hii ya Trans Nzoia.
Kaunti 038.
Kutoka gatuzi nambari 029, kaunti ya Nandi, chemichemi ya mabingwa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Kakamega.
Itakuwa nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Bungoma.
Jina langu ni Paula Munio.
Willy Dennis Jiru.
Fabian Kibet.
Mimi ni Hashim Jimal.
Mimi ni Kitio Mika Masai. John Javakiania.
Jina langu ni Abdulaziz Nameka.
Mimi ni Kombo Alfayo.
Jina langu ni Nicholas Mbai.
Isaac Famba.
Blockchain concepts. Now, how I'm looking at this one, at least we can all agree that this data harvesting has already been happening. In any case, when you're unlocking when you're using it with your face IDs on your phones and all that, only that it is used for a different purpose, just to identify you when you're unlocking your devices, assuming it works the same. The only difference is that now there's a currency or there's a coin behind this scanning. And let me demystify for the average guy out there. Let me show you how that equation looks like. Now, the guys behind this WorldCoin, they are AI developers. Like, they're just trying to build concepts around AI. And what do they need? They just need data to build whatever algorithms they're trying to build. And as they do that, they need a community around, or they need enough data to build whatever algorithms they're doing. So what is the smartest way to get a lot of data and a buzz around the coin that you're building? Because at the end of the day, we always say nothing has intrinsic value. Value is usually given by demand and supply. Just for the record, this person is only giving you an airdrop. Scan your eyes, get free tokens, 25 or 27, I don't know how many they are. And the perceived value, because when the airdrop was launched, I think the value was around $5. And then once it hits the market, then market forces gives it a true value. Currently, I think it's at maybe give or take $2. So $2 and you're given $25, that is why they're getting the value of $50 or something of the sort, which is translates to 7K. The question is, who's giving this 7K? It is not WorldCoin sending the people registering the 7,000. Now, because there's a community and there's this hype around WorldCoin, now we create the demand supply. So now, everybody who's scanning this eyeball, not everybody knows, because the coin is listed, how to go dispose these coins on exchanges. Now there comes in the brokers who are saying, hey, I can give you 3K, go scan your eyeballs for free, and then I'll give you 3K, send me those coins. And what are they buying them for? For speculations. And then based on what you say, nothing has intrinsic value. Value is given by demand and supply. I'm looking at the stats because me, I'm a numbers guy, and I always want to look at the numbers. I don't know. By the way, people have to go read the white papers of what that coin is all about. And personally, I haven't. But there's a few things that I've seen around that coin. Number one, I think there will be around 10 billion WorldCoins, that like maximum supply is that. The current circulating supply is 115. What has been released in the market is 115 million, which is just give or take maybe 1% of the total supply. So if the value is $2, yes, based on the community build around it right now, if 99% was to be thrown into the economy, then it dilutes there. So the people who are already holding for speculation, they're hoping it goes up. But for me, right now, I would be very skeptical about that move. The traders, not the buyers of, because the people going to be scanned, they're just getting free money. For the person who's scanning this data, policies around data protection and all that, I'm sure they have already confirmed it's only that big numbers gathering is what is a concern to the government and all that, but that is how that entire scenario looks like. It is not them sending money to Africa, and it's all over the world. Yes. Only that the West are not just receiving those airdrops. There's so many other countries. I think right now in 37 or 38 countries, it is us trading against ourselves because we perceive that this thing has value. But at the end of the day, over time, we'll have to see how it turns out, because the coins that are yet out there versus the numbers or the community around this cannot hold that value. Probably worst case scenario could keep going down. I don't know.
You're talking about perception. So it's all about perception. And
everything is an illusion. It's make-believe. So we say nothing has value. It's based on how available it is, demand, supply. So if something is scarce as a resource or whatever it is, then it makes it more valuable if more people want it. But if something is too available and I don't know, then it's less valuable. Those are the dynamic. That is the basics of anything in the marketplace.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I understand that we have gotten that connection back with Charles Nichols. But before I engage him, I just want to ask you this. You've talked about something very important, the demand and supply. Yeah. When people come up with such products, like WorldCoin, for instance, do they have like a predetermined inflation rate? Hoping that, we'll set it at 1.5%, 2% to increase that demand, supply, push and pull?
I don't know how exactly to answer that question because because at least for cryptocurrencies, in the white papers we always know beforehand what is in need for us, the consumers, and how much is going to be there. All those things are very important for me to make informed decisions if you choose to participate in whatever concepts that are out there. So giving that information beforehand that, yes, these are the number of coins, this is how we intend to use this technology, and if it has utility, then it ends up becoming a quite disruptive technology. I don't know. So I don't know. I'm still looking at the numbers, and I don't know. I'm looking ahead to see, but I have confidence in the developers of that currency because we know they're the same guys behind. Are we calling it OpenAI or this ChatGPT that everybody is using?
Sam Altman, the CEO.
Yeah. So those guys, I know they are on to something big that is a conversation that we are not going to avoid in the future. Hashing that, identifying people and building AI concepts. That is the only way it works, and that data has to be collected and hashed and put on blockchains for people to just go interact without knowing. Because in future, if you have a decentralized economy where now traditionally, like for instance, I don't know which is the simplest layman analogy I can use to bring that point home. Right now, people know YouTube, and when you go put your products on YouTube, then you're being paid based on how many viewers you have. Then how do I verify that people haven't built robots to just give you views and you can't really verify if there are humans behind? And now we are going on a different layer of the internet. Now we don't have YouTubes. We have a decentralized ecosystem where people are selling their maybe like their craft, like NFTs and all that. How do you identify that these hashed transactions behind the scenes, they're actually humans that are transacting? How do you do that?
Yeah.
Well,
so let me answer that question for the blockchain. So blockchain is basically, it's a ledger. So when you're talking about decentralized, is when I start off here, I paid Eric, we write it down, then it's sent to nodes, to different other servers. So it becomes decentralized. So the copy I have, this system will also have. This system, this node will also have. So you have a secure way of transferring transactions or currency between each node. Now, why it's secure, extremely secure, is that if I come and change this, like there's on the ledger there's 20, and then I could like 20 inputs or 20 transactions. If I come to 15 and I try to change it, that hash will not match with the others. And a hash, it means that I brought this, does it look identical? A hash is basically, I bring this, it will check, does it look identical? It does. If you change even a bit, it no longer fits. So that's why it's secure and decentralized.
Okay.
Now, the risk, technically, it's secure.
Okay.
The risk comes in socially. Now, when you was talking and we were talking about buying unga, value comes is volatile. Bitcoin goes up, goes down, goes up, and goes down. Like for example, the recent one was Squid Coin, where people are buying coins, and then the challenge from that Netflix series called Squid Game. And it was basically a scam because they are basically pumping the price of, the more demand there is, the more they pump up. So when it comes to here back at home, okay, you've given me a coin.
Yes.
WorldCoin. It's worth 7,000 right now. Yeah, in the future it might be 20,000. And then you deposit more. Then you become a millionaire overnight. Then overnight again, it crashes. People have withdrawn and they left you there hanging. That's the main issue with Bitcoin, with WorldCoin.
So you believe Bitcoin can come back to zero value?
It can.
Let's engage Charles. Charles, you're a serial entrepreneur, and like any other entrepreneur, you know when to cash in and when to cash out. Anthony here has talked about the white paper, so everything about that coin is on white paper. What's its future like? Are you intending to cash out anytime soon?
Yeah. So I think the points that were brought up about volatility, I think, are really salient, right? And so I think there's two ways to look at any token investment. There's the primary way, let's be honest, and most people look at this space, which is gambling. It's a casino online. I'm going to put $10 over here, and I'm going to pray that a month from now that's worth $1,000. And occasionally you get lucky, right? The same way you go to a casino, you bet on football matches. Every once in a while, someone wins. But typically, the house always wins, right? Which means that you're not actually going to make any money, and it's just a Ponzi, and most people are going to get hurt. And so I think that is what needs to stop with crypto. We need to stop having the conversation about when is this token going to moon and how am I going to make $1 million? Because the only way that works is if there's someone who's more of a fool than you. And you're always more of a fool than someone else. So I personally don't make any speculative token investments hoping that the price is going to increase, it's going to go down. When I think about buying a token, it's because I believe in the underlying utility of that token. It's doing something useful that's creating value. Now, unfortunately, in crypto, there aren't that many real world use cases today that are credible, right? There's some like decentralized exchanges like Uniswap that I think are really cool. There's on-chain borrowing like Aave, where you can deposit some crypto and then someone else borrows it from you in the marketplace and then you earn a return on that. But I think we really need to focus more as an industry on building real world use cases so we can move away from the casino into, more traditional financial services, but doing them better. And one of those use cases that I think, is worth spending some time talking about is stablecoins. So my colleague who spoke earlier talked about the volatility issue. Bitcoin can go up and down. We can have tokens that will appreciate by 1000x and then they'll be worth nothing a week later. Stablecoins address this because they track the value of fiat currency. So for example, you have Tether, USDT, or Circle, USDC, or Celo dollars, CUSD. All of these are US dollar stablecoins. And more or less, they're going to track the value of a dollar. So you can exchange one Tether for one USD, one Circle for one USD, et cetera. And these have become really important in terms of cross-border payments and remittances already in Africa. And I think that the stablecoin use case is going to expand. And I think the casino use case is going to go away, and it should go away quickly. And I think that's one of the things that regulation should seek to address.
Well, Charles, according to TechCrunch, that's a website that tracks news on tech and startups. According to TechCrunch, recently they say that hackers have installed password-stealing malware on the devices of multiple worldcoin orb. Orb is that spherical thing that scans the irises of those who intend to gain the tokens. They say that they have installed password-stealing malware on those devices. What risk do you think that poses to those that have already given out their personal data?
I mean, that's a huge hypothetical risk, right? And I think that really should be addressed directly, both by the WorldCoin team as well as security auditors. One of the advantages of kind of the WorldCoin tech stack is that both the hardware and the software is open source, which means that all of it is publicly available online. So if you're tech savvy and you want to, you can go through the schematics of how the hardware works and how the software works, line by line even, to review the code. If you have that technical background. So I think, if there are claims that that's being hacked and that the private information is being compromised because of security risk, that's a real concern and really should be addressed.
All right. Mosheke, from a cybersecurity expert, yes. We're talking about cryptocurrencies, but there's no way we can say that it's in as much as it is blockchain technology, we cannot say that it does not at any point interact with the main financial systems of any given government. From that question that I've thrown to Charles, with hackers installing password stealing malware on such devices, such important devices, do you think that's risky for any financial system?
Any financial system?
Yes. I'm talking about because now, Charles is doing with his ncoin company, he is giving Kenyans an exchange. He's giving them value for whatever that they have gained. If it's the 7,000 shillings that they've gotten, they'll get cash or rather products directly. We've seen people who get cash or rather make money, and we know that people make money from cryptocurrency. So it means there's some point where the main financial system of any government really comes into interaction with blockchain technology. Now, my question is, if hackers can install a malware, that's a very serious security breach. If they can install a malware on the devices of such important, cryptocurrencies, do you think at some point authorities should be worried that that can cause shocks in any main financial system of our government?
That can be a concern, but Currently, I know they're always on alert. There's always someone somewhere who's trying to break your system. So they have mitigations, they have systems, there are policies that can be able to address such things. There are monitoring systems, but there's one thing that most hackers cannot escape is an audit after the fact. Yes, you may have entered, you may have done something, but you'll always leave something, a thread. You'll always leave a bit of evidence that can be collected. So even if you manage, which is highly unlikely because there are many layers, as my colleague talked about, there are many layers on other than the software, other than the hardware. Like for example, that one, maybe it was the orb, which was maybe, I'm just saying maybe, I'm not saying it is, but if that was a hardware hack now is maybe they're copying now the images or either the hashtag, but I don't think it's the hash. It will not cause repercussions like across board on the financial systems. It cannot and it will not. It's too complex, it's too integrated with our lives, with our regulations and policies, especially monitoring from different departments, different, they call what? Agencies, government agencies from KRA to central bank. You know, there's so many bodies that you have to go through, which I highly doubt someone can have the patience. But by the time you're even hacking, let me just say like KRA financial systems, and you're going after the CBK, somehow you have taken months. It's not an easy thing of just click, click, click. And you can do it in several layers or several ways of doing it, but it will not at any level be a crazy, like this Kenya shilling is now losing value. No, it cannot. Yeah.
Well, back to you, Mburu, an expert on blockchain. What really leads to such innovative solutions? What really leads to them turning out to be huge scams and you know, netting a lot of unsuspecting consumers?
Of course. I think based on the discussion we're having here, I'm really now getting to see that there is need for education out there about this entire thing. Like, start everybody like a real novice, a newbie who knows nothing about this entire space, and walk them through, because when you're talking about blockchain cryptocurrencies, we're talking about just a different way of transacting. But now we've made it, just like Charles is saying, we've made it look like casino. Yes, it's like now in the traditional laws of finance, instead of focusing on how we can use currencies to trade in the marketplace, we are more concerned about how these currencies can fluctuate and we can make money. Is everybody being involved in the Forex Bureau business? It is not our business. Our business is to create utility around this new way of transacting. And if there's a community around it, that it can sustain, because we say these values are only given by how limited these currencies are. Like Bitcoin, for instance, right now circulating supply is 92%, 92.5% of the total supply. And the community around it is growing every day. And it's the backbone. It becomes like the dollar bill in the crypto space. So saying that today we would wake up, all people who believe in this technology would wake up and walk away from it, is like saying everybody who owns gold and believes in gold wakes up and says, this thing has no value and we can all dump it and walk away. It's not practical. So going to your question, why are people being taken advantage of? Because in the first place, what we are looking at, the perspective at which the consumers are approaching this market is their reason for wanting to do it is not the real underlying issue. Nobody has, all these worldcoin users, nobody has read the white paper, nobody understands what the technology is all about, nobody understands why the data is being used, but there's an incentive for them. It's money. So why would people participate? They want it easy. Actually, I don't know, I don't want to go that direction, but I do know people don't like studying and people don't like reading, and this technology is nothing related to the formal education systems we've gone through. So if anybody has to understand what you're talking about, go do some self-education. Just be a student of life, I don't know. And just as I said this morning, I don't know, formal education will make us a living, and we all know the traditional ways of doing things are becoming extinct over time, but self-education is what makes us a fortune. These AI things we are talking about, blockchain and everything, is threatening traditional jobs and businesses and how things are done. And universities are not teaching the new way of looking at the marketplace. So for me, It's just lack of education. And they need to go out there and educate themselves.
All right. Charles, as we wrap up, what do you think about now, the future of cryptocurrency, and especially in Africa?
I'd just like to echo what my colleague just said about education. I think that was extremely well said and right on the dot. I'd put a note down to touch on some of those points, but he covered it, I think, much better than I could. You know, one of the things that we see that's worked really well is community meetups, right? So I previously was an entrepreneur in residence at Celo blockchain, which is an Ethereum compatible mobile first blockchain. And we used to do a lot of events at universities, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, et cetera. And those worked really well. Binance and Exchange, crypto exchange, does the same thing. They recently did a Binance meetup that some of my friends went to up in Nyeri. And we had a range of folks from like diehard OG crypto people who, you know, had Bitcoin back when it was to you know, a guy who does Boda Boda and has heard about crypto and thinks maybe this is, you know, something he can make some money on. So he shows up to listen. And I think we really need to promote that, right? Both within the university context, but also around the country, right? Creating these community meetups so that people can sit and ask questions and they can get comfortable. And, you know, for sure, adding to that, online education, you know, reading stuff yourself, watching YouTube videos, all of that. But the more education, the more I think people will shift towards projects that are creating real value and shift away from projects that are like just kind of sharing, you know, oh, this is going to explode and be so valuable overnight. You know, I think that people really need to get stuck into this. And one of the advantages Kenya has from an outsider, foreigner perspective is that you guys have done this before several times, right? The most recent example is with M-Pesa, where, you know, it's not that mobile money didn't exist, the concept didn't exist anywhere else. It's just nobody else was prepared to adopt it, right? And CBK, I think, gets a lot of credit for this, for taking the risk and giving M-Pesa the first license. But then the everyday Kenyans also deserve credit because, you know, they decided to try this out, this kind of funky technology where you would use your phone and a message to send money to grandma up country or whatever. And that's just something that a lot of other countries around the world, not just in Africa, are unwilling to do, unwilling to embrace innovation, unwilling to take that risk to kind of get ahead. So I think that medium-term Kenya and Kenyans are extremely well positioned to lead this next wave of financial innovation. But I think that there's an opportunity to kind of build education both at the university level and the community level in order to kind of facilitate that trend.
Well, thank you, Charles, for that. And in the interest of time, I have to say, have yourself a great afternoon in New York. I'm sure it is about 30 minutes past 3 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us for this very important conversation, Charles.
Thank you so much. It was a privilege. Have a great evening, everybody. Kwaheri.
Thank you, Kwaheri too, as well as Anthony Mburu, who's a blockchain expert, and John Musheke. Thank you so much for joining us for this very important conversation. But in the interest of time, I wish we could continue with this, but in the interest of time, we have to come to an end.